Farmers across the country have just finished up planning for 2020. And before closing the book on this season, you should take some time to evaluate how well the season went. What didn't work out? What could be done better? Do you think you will meet your goals? The team from Precision Planting helps address it all tonight.
Good evening and welcome to Rural America Live. I'm John Jenkinson. You know, farmers are always challenging the status quo, and that's the focus at the Precision Technology Institute. We'll kick off tonight's show with a video that explains how agronomic research drives this farm and how you can get involved.
The Precision Technology Institute farm is Precision Planting's 200-acre agronomy research farm in Pontiac, Illinois. The Pti Farm, as we call it, is the only place you can test drive farm equipment and see the results of what it can do. You know, it's tough, and we understand how challenging it can be to do on-farm research when weather, logistics, and time are working against you, and it's go time outside. But you always need to continue learning and improving. We're here to help, and that's why the Pti Farm is focused on doing on-farm field trials to help growers get the most out of technology, agronomy, and equipment. We know that a product is only as good as how it's used. We're constantly looking at products and practices that challenge the status quo. We want to provide you with information and insight to improve your bottom line in a practical way. Events at the Pti Farm are different than other plot days that you've been to. There's over 50 plots to see at the farm, from planter settings to irrigation to fertility, and plots that cover all aspects of production. Plots and agronomy teaching are just one part. At the farm, we hand you the keys to literally the latest tractors and planting technology and let you run them in what we affectionately call our Precision Planting sandbox. Precision Planting support technicians will be in the buddy seat and making sure you get the most out of your drive time. Lastly, you will witness our unique water recycling system at the Pti Farm, drainage tile that feeds a pond in which water is recycled through drip and subsurface tile. Nowhere else in the world will you get an experience like this at the Pti Farm. To visit the farm, register today by going to precisionplanting.com or contact a Precision Planting dealer near you.
We're going to dive even deeper into agronomics and learn more about the Pti Farm for the next hour. So let's go ahead and meet our panel of experts that we have here tonight. You may remember each of them from Rural America Live broadcast that we did back in December. First up, you just met him in the video, Jason Webster, who manages the Precision Technology Institute. You farm also, don't you, Jason?
I do, yeah. I've been involved in our family farming operation for over 30 years now. Farm with my father and our East Central Illinois farm, and I think it's important to look at that perspective of being a farmer, because you know we're out there just like many of you growers are doing at home, battling through the challenges that Mother Nature throws at us. And I guess from a precision planting point of view, we're trying to find agronomic problems in the field, so as a team we can come up with solutions for those problems. So it's not just me being a farmer at the Pti Farm, it's about all the employees and R&D and our staff at Precision Planting being farmers to know what farmers are going through themselves on their farms.
Okay. Well, next we have Justin Mcmenamy, who works with the products team at Precision Planting. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Justin.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show tonight, John. So I have the privilege of being the Director of Product at Precision Planting. And I get to work with our product development team, our product support team, and our operations team as we bring new technologies to market, as we bring them from the dry erase board out to the field. I've been at Precision Planting for just under 7 years, and before that I worked in the construction and mining industry as an engineer.
All right. And Doug Wiegand, who leads the sales team at Precision Planting. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, John. I've been at Precision Planting a little over 16 years. Grew up on a farm in Central Illinois, and my family as well owned an ag retail business for about 20 years. And so been working in agriculture and serving customers, farmers, and the agronomics behind it for really my whole life. And so today I have the opportunity and the privilege to lead the North American sales team in the U.S. and Canada.
All right. Well, welcome to all of you, gentlemen. Doug, let's dive right in with your thoughts on what's important for you as farmers to consider now that planting season is complete. You know, even though you lead the sales team at Precision Planting, you said that earlier that you really don't look at this as sales. Isn't that right?
Yeah, we kind of have a common motto there at Precision Planting among the sales team, and it is stop selling and start teaching. And really the whole idea behind that is we want to try to help the customers and help the dealers. Ultimately, our dealers are part of that team. Figure out where the weak links are out there in their stand establishment. So we have a lot of our dealers, all of our dealers across North America, and our region manager team are out in the field in the last month as stands have coming out of the ground, doing stand evaluations and consultations out there to try to figure out where can we help that customer improve next year.
Sure. Well, Jason, you know, one of the things I find refreshing is that you take the approach of teaching farmers and really have a heart to help them, not just sell. The major focus of tonight's show here is the Precision Technology Institute, or the Pti Farm, that we talked a lot about earlier today. And we learned about a little bit from the video before, but can you expand on this and tell us just a little bit more?
Sure, John. The Pti Farm is a 400-acre research farm located in Pontiac, Illinois. We're about 85 miles south of Chicago, right along Interstate 55. And this is just a good spot for us to be. We've got good visibility. A lot of folks see our farm as they're driving down the road. But on this 400-acre farm, we challenge the status quo, and we compare what farmers are used to doing on their farms today, and we just compare it to different things. Is there a different way to increase yield? Is there, will that different way of farming make us more money on a per acre basis? So the whole idea of our farm is to invite growers from all over the world, and they come in, they see what research we're doing on our farm. And then this is the important thing. We simply have a conversation in the field. And, we do this every day during the summer. This isn't just a one field day and done. We do this all summer long. And the fact that we have different growers and they have different ideas and different things happening on their farm, the conversation is different every day because we're just sharing ideas, we're listening, and farmers get the opportunity to talk.
Sure. You know, Justin, you work with the products teams, and the Pti Farm is not for future development, but it's about agronomics. So how do the product teams fit into the Pti Farm?
Yeah, for the product teams, Pti Farm is as much about interaction and about learning. It's an opportunity for us to learn from farmers in the county, in the country, and really across the world. It's an opportunity for us in the product development team to understand your farm and your agronomics and your economics of your operation. You know, I mentioned in the introduction that I had worked for a large organization for 10 years as an engineer. And during those 10 years, I designed products the entire time I was there, but I never once had the opportunity to shake the hand of a man or woman that used the equipment that I designed, or even sold the equipment that I designed. Now, we've all had that experience where you buy a product from a large company and you open it up and you're trying to set it up and you think to yourself, what in the heck was the engineer thinking when he designed this, right?
Yeah.
And so for us at Precision Planting, it's an opportunity for us to interact with the grower, to interact with the customer, so that we can understand their operation and we don't have that situation happen. Another interesting aspect is our product support team. The same guys that do the training on the equipment and support the product throughout the spring, they provide a unique opportunity for growers to see our equipment operate in the field, to understand how our equipment would run on their planter, to understand how it would integrate into their ecosystem on their farm. And so for us, it's really about the conversation and the time to spend with the customer, to understand them.
Interesting. All right. Well, Jason, I know that for farmers, seeing research data and trial data and the ROI, return on investment, from those trials is pretty important. So what are some of the principles that you use when setting up plots at the Pti Farm?
Well, every year we put our trials together, our trial protocols. Everything's replicated on the farm, but they're all designed to kind of challenge the status quo of what farmers are used to doing on their farm today. And I mentioned this earlier. Can we do things different on the farm to increase yield and increase profitability? We laugh a little bit when we talk to growers. We ask them why they're doing the things on their farm the way they've been doing it for years. And they'll say, well, that's just what we're used to doing. We feel comfortable doing it this way. We've done it this way for a long time. We know how to do it. But our question is it the right way? And how do you know it's the right way unless you compare it to something different to see if it is better? What if it does make you more money on a per acre basis? Does it mean that you need to change your whole operation? Some farmers don't have the time, they don't have the money to put in the effort to do the testing on their own farms. This past year was a great example. This spring, it was hard enough to get the crop planted alone, let alone do all the field research. But that's what PTI is. We do the trials on the farm, we challenge the status quo, and we find out if there's better ways compared to what we're used to doing them on the farm. The 7 most expensive words in business is, we've always done it that way, and it's just not the right reason.
So you have all of these results. How do farmers get them?
Yeah, that's a popular question. Growers are, reaching out to us saying, we want to get the trial results. We've got nearly 100 trial results on the farm. How do we get these from you guys? And I think we've gotten away from paper versions and printing these at the press. We're going electronic now. We're going videos. What we have is called Inside PTI. Growers can go to InsidePTI.com and get weekly videos of all the agronomic trials that we do at the PTI farm. Kind of an inside look, if you will. Over the next few months, they'll be getting an inside look in the field at PTI of what we're seeing, and then we'll publish all the results through videos again throughout the wintertime again through Inside PTI.
Wow. Well, there you have it, farmers. If you're looking to find out what practices pay on your farm and which ones don't, sign up to receive 2 emails each week that will tell you those answers at INSIDEPTI inside PTI.com. We have to pause for a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get into some of the trial results that they have from the PTI farm. Stay with us here on Rural America Live. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Rural America Live. Tonight we have guests from Precision Planting with us, and we're here to talk about ways to continually improve your farm when it comes to agronomy, technology, and equipment. I'm here with Doug Wygand, Justin Mcmenamy, and Jason Webster. And tonight we're focusing on the Precision Technology Institute, which is their research farm. So Jason, I want to start here with you. Let's get into those trial results that we were talking about earlier. What are some of the different agronomy trials that you look at for the farm?
Yeah, we've got nearly 100 trials, I think, at the farm this year where we're evaluating everything from tillage to downforce on the planter, singulation. We've got all different kinds of trials that we've got going on, but they're designed around farmers, on what they're thinking about on their farm. So in other words, every decision a farmer has to make, I truly believe that we are testing it on the farm. So this farm isn't just about precision planting products, it's about agronomy. And as we invite growers to come to the farm and we go on agronomic tours, we often say this is agronomy 101. And we mentioned earlier that I'm a farmer. Every decision we have to make on the farm, it takes some thought. And here we're doing that at the PTI farm, but we're putting it to test, and we'll not only test it this year, but we'll test it long term, next year, the year after that, to get some long-term consistency and results.
Doug, you talked earlier about precision planting, working with dealers and growers to educate, improve, and not just sell. So what are some of the trials that are impactful for growers?
Well, one of the things that our dealers and employees, region managers, sales guys really educate is the foundation of ear count. And the highest, most important thing we can focus on from a ROI standpoint on the agronomy side is emergence. And so emergence, we say, is that foundation. It's that first step that we have to get right. If we don't get it right, a lot of other things really, we pull away from the value. So when we think about emergence, the very first thing that's going to confront that new open seed bed is row cleaners. And when we're talking with row cleaners, we've got a lot of different environments out here. You see here a video of some corn stalk residue, pretty heavy. It looked like it was tilled environment. So having those row cleaners set just right to where you're maximizing residue out of that furrow. But then on top of that, clods. Clods can be, or rocks. In 2019, in the PTI plot itself, we were extremely wet. It turned off, and then in June, when it did stop raining, it got hot. It baked the top. Went in there. We field cultivated it. And it was clods, like rocks. And so what happened when we did not run row cleaners is we couldn't get seed into moist dirt. And by running row cleaners a little more aggressive than what we'd normally want to do, we were able to move those clods out of the way and get those seeds into good moisture. And you can see the stand difference there. It's just significant difference. That's just clods. And so, you know, in the 16 years I've been at Precision Planting, residue management has not always been the focus it is today, but here's the results as well in that row cleaner plot from 2019 in the row cleaner study, where no row cleaners was a 26 bushel loss and almost $100 loss on the economic side. And then getting those things adjusted to just the right amount of applied pressure, maximize the return. You know, back in 2013, I can remember growers, I was doing some meetings in central Iowa, working with a dealer. And that dealer ran conventional tillage, deep fall tillage, deep spring tillage, flat, square, and pretty black ground, really good soil. And he lifted his row cleaners up and did a pass, and it was a 13 bushel loss where he did not run row cleaners. The same year, a dealer in northeastern Indiana ran in no-till, and he lifted his row cleaners up and did a plot, and it was a 12.6 bushel loss. So really, it doesn't matter whether you're in conventional tillage or no-till, managing residue is a really big deal. And then the second step, John, really is downforce management. Once we have that residue and clod and rocks cleaned out for that seed furrow to be created, getting the right amount of downforce is a critical part. Having just enough weight applied to that row unit or lifted from that row unit to the bar to make sure you have enough weight to maintain consistent depth. And then also, you know, your row cleaners take force, your closing wheels take force, any other attachments require a certain amount of applied force. So the Delta Force hydraulic cylinder here is a Precision Planting product we came out with back in 2013. And it is a row-by-row, independent row-by-row hydraulic downforce management system.
It seems like a no-brainer to get your planter equipped so that it's operating right. Justin, you have some interesting things that have been learned this year about planting depth. Can you share those with us?
Yeah, each time that we plant a crop, our goal is to get the emergence as quick as possible, but also in the smallest window possible. We want every seed to experience the same amount of moisture and the same amount of heat from when it's planted to when it emerges. And one of the ways that we do that is to set the planter depth. Now, for most of us, historically, what we can do is we can set the planter depth to a single depth, and we leave the planter at that depth for the entire field. We may leave it there for the entire crop. Now, John, you mentioned that you farmed in western Kansas.
Yep.
And that is 600 miles from where my family farmed with my grandfather in St. Charles, Missouri. Now, if I ask you a question, how deep did your grandfather teach you to plant your corn?
Oh, my grandfather, my father, everything was that deep, that first knuckle on your first index finger.
That's right, the second knuckle on that index finger. That's right. It doesn't matter where in the country we have the conversation, that second knuckle. I don't know what meeting that every farmer went to 5 generations ago, but they all learned that second knuckle.
We all do it.
That's exactly right.
You know?
It's universal.
And even to this day, if you have the conversation with the generation coming in, it's still that second knuckle.
Sure
now, the second knuckle has proven over generations and over years and over acres to get the crop, to get our corn into moisture most often. And so that is a rule of thumb. It has worked. For us at Precision Planting, what we want to understand are the trade-offs. What are the trade-offs? As we pick a planting depth, what are we gaining and what are we losing as we make that decision? And so for the last 3 years, we've run a number of trials. For instance, one of the trials that we run is we go into a field with one seed on one day with one planter, and we set the rows to different depths. And what we do is, so we'll plant at 1.5 inches, at 2 1/4, and then also at 3 inches of depth. And then we're going to plant right next to the seed, we're going to put a thermocouple. We're going to put a temperature sensor. And we're going to look at how much temperature, how much energy that seed is going to see in the next 21 days. Because we know on the day of planting that there's moisture there, and that moisture is the first thing we need for germination, but we also need heat. We also need energy. And what we saw is that if we just look at the average temperature of the seed, whether it was 1 3/4, 2 1/4, or 3 inches, the average temperature was by and large the same. We saw about a 1 degree difference. but germination doesn't happen off of the average temperature. Those hotter days where we saw a higher temperature at 1.5 inches than at 3 inches, that germination is cranking at 1.5 inches and it's going slower at 3 inches. And so even though we have the same average temperature and we have the same moisture when we planted, we actually see 20% more fuel, 20% more energy going into the seed at 1.5 inches. And when we go back and we scout these crops, these fields, what we see is that when you have that moisture on the day of planting, that 1.5 inch depth is by and large going to be faster to emerge, as well as a more even stand as we come out. Again, we're looking for speed to emergence and even emergence. We want every one to be a photocopy of the next one down the row. And so we've seen this very often where at that shallower depth where we had the moisture, we get to the surface more quickly and more evenly. Now we go to 3 inches, we had the same moisture on the day of planting, but we didn't get that energy, we didn't get that temperature, and so 20 days later, we still haven't fired, we still haven't got out of the surface. One of the other cool things that we've done the last couple years is we've actually designed a rig where we can go through the field and we can measure the moisture at multiple depths at the exact same time. So one pass through the field and we can see the moisture 1 inch below the surface, 2 inches below the surface, and 3 inches below the surface. Now here's a field that we ran last July, and what you can see is that we're showing at 3 different depths. So at that 1.5 inch depth on the left, we see that there's a lot of dry soil at 1.5 inches, and that's what we'd expect. At a shallow depth, we're going to have less moisture. So we see a lot of red and a lot of yellow on the screen. In the middle, at that 2 inch depth, we're going to see that we've got more moisture. We've still got some dry soil, but we're getting more moisture. And then as we get down to 2.5 inches, we see that there's moisture at every location. Now, what's really cool is when we now think about one pass. So as we just think about one pass through this field, it's 0.4 of a mile from the north side of the field to the south side of the field. And if we take this information and we now look at what the seed horizon looks like, we got our little tractor there and we're 0.4 of a mile from left to right, and we're looking at the seed planting horizon from 1 inch to 3 inches on the up and down axis here. In the same pass, what we see is that at the beginning of the pass, there's moisture at 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. But as we get into the middle of the pass, whether it's the higher ground, whether it's the lighter soil, we see that that moisture line dips. That moisture line is going to dip almost down to 3 inches in some instances. Now, as we think about this pass right here, and we only set the T-handle to one setting, the question we ask ourselves is, what is the planting depth with the best agronomic return for this pass right here? Now, as we think about everybody's great-grandfather's second knuckle, most people plant their corn between 1.75 inches and 2.25 inches, depending on the geography and depending on the weather. And as we look at this pass, if we set that depth to 2.25 inches, we're going to get most moisture across the whole pass, but what are we giving up? What are we giving up in heat units and in days to emergence and in even emergence? And that's what our research has really focused on. And it's tests like this that has led us then to product development. So we've come out with a product called Smart Firmer. Smart Firmer attaches to your row unit, and you can put one on each and every row unit. And what it's going to be is a sensor. It's going to be a sensor right there into the furrow, right next to the seed at the moment that the seed goes into the ground. And it's going to show you in the cab the temperature and the moisture of the soil right as that seed goes into the ground. So we can understand for each seed on our field, for each field on our farm, whether we have the moisture to start germination and what the temperature is at the moment that goes in. What we've also been working on is a product called Smart Depth. Now, what Smart Depth allows us to do is to, as a grower, we're going to set the minimum depth that we're comfortable planting and the maximum depth that we're comfortable planting. And then from there, Smart Depth and Smart Firmer are going to work together and play the trade-offs of finding that moisture, because moisture is king. If you don't plant into moisture, you're not going to germinate. Finding that moisture, but also maximizing the benefit of the GDUs that are possible to come as we look at the 10-day outlook. If we've got sun in the 10-day outlook and we've got moisture in the ground right now, that's going to give us the best chance to get to quick and even emergence.
Well, Justin, while I've got you here, I want to stay here for just a moment. And this is a farm kid question from being a farmer. Does this automatically adjust then? Once you set the parameters, the depth, shallow or deep, however your range is there, how often, how rapidly does this adjust as you're going through the field? How many? That'd be the next question, because
That's right.
It's going to change so much in a quarter mile or even a half a mile.
That's right. So as you mentioned, the grower, we're going to set the minimum depth that we're comfortable planting and the maximum depth that we're comfortable planting. And that'll be different for soybeans or cotton or corn. And so depending on the crop we're putting in, we, the grower, we, the input, we, the person that are running the tractor, we're going to put that comfort zone into the computer. And it's not going to go any shallow or any deeper than that. As we think about going downfield, it's been a really interesting part of our research. You know, if you think about product design, oftentimes we as engineers, the faster is better, right? Let's make it faster. Let's put more horsepower. Let's go, let's go, let's go. But this exercise has been really interesting because our focus at Precision Planting is not just the engineering of the product, it's the agronomy of the product. And really the agronomy trumps the engineering because we're trying to drive return on investment for the farm. And so for that reason, we actually do not have smart depth screwed tight where it's going to respond very, very quickly. Because as we think about emergence, even emergence is the most important aspect. If you're late to the first day of the party, you're going to be late for the entire year. And if you're 2 collars behind, you're a weed and not going to yield any fruit. And so what we've done is we've actually, through our research, we've tuned and calibrated smart depth so that it is going to see the moisture and it's going to respond. But we don't want 2 seeds right next to each other, one at 1 3/4 inches and one at 2 1/4. So it's going to be more in that 40 to 60 foot range that we're going to adjust from one depth to the next as we see the change in the soil zone, as we see the change in the altitude of the field.
Does that limit your ground speed though?
No, it doesn't. So we've done a number of tests over the last year, and we've run it with our 5-mile-an-hour technologies as well as our 10-mile-an-hour technology of speed tube. And so we have growers that are running 10, 11 miles an hour across the field with smart firmer and smart depth, adjusting for moisture on the fly.
Man, that is the definition of challenging the status quo with new thinking. Jason, back to you. As a farmer, what do you think of the results that are being seen so far relative to planting depth?
Well, every farmer has to adjust their planter for depth, every single field. And it just seems like we've been guessing in a lot of situations. In order to know whether we've got the perfect depth, we've got to stop that tractor and that planter, and we've got to go and dig. And Justin mentioned it, we've got sensing technology now. Growers, we've got a button on the monitor now that tells us whether we're planting into moisture, and we've all done it. We've all planted into dry moisture. It was a mistake. It was an error. We screwed up, right? We planted too shallow into dry dirt, and it was a costly error. It happens. But now that we've got the sensing technology, it shows us if we're planting into moisture. We measure it, and if we're not planting into moisture, we can make the adjustment and change it.
Let's go back for a little bit further on the row unit then, Jason, because there's one other thing to get it all right, and that's the closing there when you get done, that final pass.
Yeah, that last part of the planter, the closing. You know, we make that V trench, we place that seed in the bottom, and we have to close it. A closing system has 2 jobs and 2 jobs only. Number 1, that true V that we made with the openers, we've got compaction here, sidewall compaction, and a closer is designed to blow that compaction out so we don't have that soil density issue there. The other thing is, if there's an air pocket in the trench, we've got to eliminate that air pocket. Think about a seed imbibing water to germinate. Where does it get the water? It gets it from the soil. But if there's an air pocket in the furrow where the seed is at, that seed's going to be next to air, and it can't get that water to germinate. So those are the 2 things that a closing system is designed to do. The problem is most closing systems we've used in the past could only do one of those 2 things, not both of them. So now we have a product with Furrow Force that is a 2-stage system that allows us to lift and fracture the sidewall with our first stage closing, and then the back stitch wheel is designed to push the air pocket out. But this has been tremendous. We've been testing this at the Pti Farm the last 2 years. And it's just been a pleasure to run in some of our testing. I just finished up planting at the Pti Farm in the last few days, and it was just amazing watching Furrow Force especially in some of our reduced tillage situations. Here's some trial results from last year. This was the first harvest results we brought in with Furrow Force, and I started getting the data in, and we were showing a 9.5 bushel yield increase from Furrow Force last year. And I said, I don't know, that seems like a large yield amount there. Why are we getting a 9.5 bushel advantage? And it's that closing system again, that two-stage lifting and fracturing and blowing the air pocket out, and it's getting us more plants up out of the ground, which leads to more harvestable ears. Do you know that I'm in 30-inch rows for the most part on my farm. If we lay a tape measure down, 17.5 feet, a thousandth of an acre, if we screw up, if we don't close the trench properly, and we miss one harvestable ear, that represents about 7 bushel per acre. So now I go back to Furrow Force where I'm getting increases of 9.5 bushel. It explains it all right there, that we're getting more plants up out of the ground, which is leading to more harvestable ears. This is what we struggled with closing systems in the past, and thankfully we've got a system here that I think is going to get the job done for us.
That was an amazing picture that you shared there just a moment ago, how well that soil is and how closely it's all packed around that seed. It's exciting to give farmers a solution to a system that's previously been a struggle. Justin, what feedback have you heard on this?
Yeah, John, with each product that we launch, we love to talk to our growers and hear their experience. And each grower will talk a little bit different about each product, and they'll talk about a moment. It's the moment that they know that investment in technology on their planter is going to reap a return, that they're going to get a return on that investment. Doug talked about Delta Force in the last segment, and the row-by-row hydraulic downforce control to make sure that we're putting the right amount of force on the opener discs and not compacting the soil. And for years, growers have talked about the moment that they knew that Delta Force was paying on their farm is when they looked at their 2020 and they looked at the applied force map. So they had run spring tillage and they can't see, it all looks nice and smooth, but they run Delta Force, and Delta Force shows them, for instance, the grain cart tracks from last fall running north-south across the middle of the field. And in the bottom side of the field, that lighter soil where Delta Force is actually going to lift the row unit a little bit, not lift it out of the ground, but take weight off the row unit so that we're not compacting that soil. That's the moment that those growers know that Delta Force is making a difference on their farm. This last year, as we launched Furrow Force, we talked to a number of growers about that moment with Furrow Force. And what they described is, as most growers, you start the field, you open up the field, and you're going to get out of the planter, go behind the planter, and you're going to dig. And what you're looking for is to make sure your spacing is right, make sure your depth is right, make sure the planter is tuned properly. And in general, what you do when you dig is you're going to dig until you find the V trench that the planter just made, and you're going to then start following with your knife the V trench until you find a few seeds. And then you're going to be able to measure depth, and you're going to be able to measure spacing. Time and time again this year, we heard from growers, I can't find the V trench. I'm digging behind the planter and I can't find that sidewall. I can't find that V trench where the planter went right through. You guys have made it so much harder for me to dig behind the planter. and that's a great experience because that V trench is soil that has been moved, it's been compacted, and that seedling is going to have to fight through that compacted soil to set the root structure or fight its way to the surface. Or if there's an air pocket, it's going to struggle to get moisture. One story that we heard was from a grower named Ben Moore in Northeast Indiana, and he works with our dealer Mavis Metermax. And now Ben, like a lot of growers, he wanted to understand and he wanted to kind of toe into technology before he went in whole hog. So Ben runs 2 36-row planters, and this last year he bought 2 rows of Furrow Force and he put them on the bean planter. He started the year and he ran in the first field and he sent this picture to Doug Wiegand. And he said, Doug, I've had my moment. I already know that Furrow Force is going to pay on my farm. And so what we see with this photograph is we see on the left-hand side of the picture, we see a Furrow Force row. And what we see is the soil looks largely uninterrupted, undisturbed. On the right-hand side of the photo is the John Deere stock closing system. Now, you don't have to wait till scouting. You don't have to wait till yield checks. If you see open trench, if you see slabbing like that, you are going to be giving up lots and lots of yield. And so for Ben, this was the moment on the first day of planting. And so he called Doug and he called Mavis Metermax and he said, I need 34 more rows of furrow force for this spring. When can you get them to me? So he ended up outfitting his whole bean planter with 36 rows of furrow force. We called Ben back in May as he was wrapping up and we said, Ben, how did the year end up for you? And his comment was it was one of the best stands that he had seen. And he was convinced that because of furrow force's ability to close, even in some challenging situations, Ben said he was able to plant 1,200 acres of beans that he otherwise would have had to wait until the field had dried out a little bit more to get the closing system to close. And so furrow force had given him more planting days this past year. And so his comment was, as we go into 2021 next year, we're going to have furrow force on the corn planter also. We're going to set up furrow force on both the planters. We also worked with a grower named David Hula, who farms in Virginia, and he's going to share his story and his experience of furrow force this past year.
This past winter, we had the planter tore down and had opportunities to talk with Precision about some of the new things that they have to go forward, and we volunteered to do the beta testing on the furrow force. We put 4 rows on. We put one between the transport wheels, and then we put one kind of in the middle where there was no transport wheels on both sides. And then we went out in the field where we were going to just plant some cucumbers this spring, put some corn in a hopper, went out and made a run. Compared to the system that we were currently using, there was a significant difference in that the stage 1 wheels, notch wheels, were just squeezing the soil in where we had the double disc openers just open this trench. The stage 1 wheels closed it up just perfect. And then we had the stage 2 of the stitch wheels, and they left a groove there. They kind of removed some trash, and we liked what we saw. So as opposed to just waiting, we let the corn come up, and then we saw all the corn come up uniformly. I went ahead and changed the other 12 rows. So unlike things that I normally do is change everything one season, I went ahead and changed it all because I was that confident. And this year, we had the absolute best emergence we have ever had. I thought 2018 was good. This was just flat awesome. That was one of the contributing factors, if not the most contributing factor we've had to where we have surpassed our highest yields ever, and we have been excited about the harvest all season long. If the corn comes up uniformly and quickly, then we're going to work with that crop very aggressively. And when you can get that and you can check that box off your list, say, hey, I did all I could, the sky's the limit. And we saw that in 2019. We tapped yields that we could only dream of, and now they've become reality.
Wow, amazing. Jason, you talked about doing a lot of fertility trials at the Pti Farm. Tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time, a lot of acres of our research farm devoted to fertility research, and probably one of the things that stood out the most over the past 3 years, not just 1 year, but 3 years, has been nitrogen applications on the planter. And I guess this kind of hits home with me because, as we were talking earlier about challenging the status quo, my family farm for years had never put liquid on the planter, especially nitrogen. My grandfather didn't want to do it, which led to my father not wanting to do it. And guess what? I'm in that same situation where I didn't want to do it. We'd never done it before. We didn't feel comfortable with it. But we started putting liquid tanks on the planter. Here you can kind of see our tractor and planter rolling in the field. We've got liquid tanks on it. And some of these tanks are filled with nitrogen, and we're applying liquid 32% nitrogen as we plant. And whether these be single band or dual band applications in nitrogen, they've just been tremendous in regards to pushing corn yields. And we call it luxury nitrogen. It's not that we're putting more nitrogen on it, we're making it very accessible, easily accessible for that corn to get the nitrogen. Here's a product called Conceal, and this is where we use the gauge wheel of the planter. We're not hanging heavy coulters and weights on the planter. The planters are too heavy the way they are. We're going to existing space inside the gauge wheels. Here's a good look at it right here. We can either go a single band or a dual band. This picture is showing dual band. We've got 2 streams of nitrogen 3 inches away from each side of the seed trench and about 1.5 inches deep. Nitrogen is very mobile within the soil profile. It'll move with water. We don't want to bury it too deep. We want to keep it close enough to the seed, but yet be safe so it doesn't harm it, since 32 is a very salty product. But we've seen some really nice gains when we've gone to putting nitrogen on the planter. I will admit to you, it's a little tougher handling liquid on the planter, but it's given us some nice returns. And, you know, years ago, we were a weed and feed situation. And what do I mean by that? We put all of our nitrogen on in a liquid form with our herbicide. And we don't really recommend that these days because we know there's better ways of applying nitrogen, like side dressing. The middle bar on this graph shows where we put half of it as a weed and feed, half as a side dress, and we're picking up nearly 14 bushel yield gains. Here's the thing that we found at the Pti Farm. When we take the step and put nitrogen on the planter, we're seeing the same 14 bushel response when we went to split applications of side dressing nitrogen. It's in addition to, though. So these are some nice gains. Again, we're not putting on more nitrogen. It's the same amount of nitrogen, but it's returning in a lot of our trials up to an additional $60 per acre of extra revenue. And that's pretty powerful when you look at a grower growing a lot of acres of corn.
Well, and you're already running diesel fuel to plant. So are you eliminating one pass then?
We could, and you know, we're making that pass with the planter. We're applying that in my case dual band. Yep. So I'm getting that concentration, that efficiency right on both sides of the plant, and it's driving yields. We get to that V5 growth stage where that corn plant's setting rounds. She knows she's got enough nitrogen, and she's going to give it all she's got.
All right. Well, we got to pause for another break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about raising 100. Yes, I'm saying this right. 100 bushel the acre soybeans. Sign up for results at InsidePTI.com. Plus, we'll talk to a farmer who went to the farm, and we want him to talk about the changes that he's made since then and the results he's seen. More Rural America Live with Precision Planting coming up. Welcome back to Rural America Live. Tonight we're talking about challenging the status quo with precision planting. Their Pti Farm provides agronomic tours and results. Be sure and visit them at InsidePTI.com to sign up for trial results that can be applied to your farming operation. Jason, before we took the break, we mentioned that we were talking about 100 bushel of the acre beans, but before we discuss that, there is one other key aspect of the farm that we want to discuss. Can you tell us a little bit about that water recycling program that we mentioned, we showed pictures of earlier?
You bet, John. It is a unique aspect of our farm. And when we acquired the Pti Farm back in 2017, we quickly realized it was a wet farm. And there's probably a lot of growers out there listening that can relate. We just didn't have a lot of tile on the farm. So when we get big rains, we've got problems with drainage on the farm. And we could put tile in, but where do we outlet it to? I mean, here's a picture of the farm. We've got all this water. Where does it go? This is an area of the lowest part of the farm. And we said, hey, we got an idea. This lowest area of the farm, let's dig it out and build a reservoir. So now we've got a place to hold the water. It's our outlet for water. Now we can bring the tile machines in, put drainage tile in, and take that water and deposit it into this reservoir. This reservoir is about 3 acres in size, cut 25 foot deep, and it is designed to hold water at the Pti Farm. And the thing I love about this is, yes, I'm getting rid of water when I don't need it, but I'm going to take that water, I'm going to recycle it when I do need it, and we're going to irrigate that water. So we are recycling rainwater at the farm. It's taken a lot of work to get this done. You can see the high hose out there digging away, creating this reservoir. But this has allowed us to put tile in because now we've got an outlet. We're making healthier soils. We're pushing yields, but I can recycle this water. I'm going to reuse it. I'm not going to let it go down the river. I'm going to hold it until I need it when we turn hot and dry in July and August, and I'm going to irrigate it.
Wow. So water management is critical to maximizing crop yields. Jason, tell us about the 100 bushel beans that you grew this year.
Yeah, the irrigation was a big part of growing high yield beans. And, we planted late. Last year, we didn't get our high yield soybean plot planted till June 10th. So I had no expectations of trying to get 100 bushel yields, but the way we managed it with the at-plant nutrition on the planter with FurrowJet and Conceal, setting the stage up. Here you can see how the beans look like at early stages. Look at those beans on the right. We've got that taller bean, greener in color, more lush compared to the yellow beans on the other side that is just a control. So we're making progress here by pushing the nutrition, adding water when we need it, and we're changing the root structure of these soybeans. And most people think of soybeans as a taproot. Here's a good picture of it right here. We're changing, I do agree that soybeans are a taproot, but we're changing the way we're feeding these soybean plants with our recycling program of water with our irrigation. We're putting drip tape in, and we're feeding this soybean plant with water and nutrition. And now look at the root mass. That's not a taproot. That's a big fibrous root system that kind of looks like corn. And this is what's helping us drive yields. And we did get 2 entries last year, get us over 100 bushel in soybean yields. I'll be honest with you, the only time I was able to get 100 bushel yields at the farm was where we used Conceal, that product we talked a little bit earlier on corn. But here's those 2 treatments using Conceal, again, 3 inches away from the furrow and about 1.5 inches deep. Again, this is on soybeans. Tremendous yield response, and again, on a late planting season where I didn't think we had a chance to get it, but we did.
That is just amazing. Well, now we wanted to hear from a farmer who has taken part in the PTI Farm. We have on the phone with us Kevin McCarthy, who traveled from Muskegongo, Wisconsin to Pontiac, Illinois to take part in the field days. So, Kevin, tell us a little bit about your operation.
Hi, John. My operation is it's strictly a cash grain farm. I don't have no cattle. I run about 2,100 acres of cropland, about 1,100 of corn I run, about 800 of soybeans, and I do raise some wheat, about 200 acres a year. So that's pretty much how my operation is. Sure. I started farming about 31 years ago. I actually took over my parents' farm in 1989 is when I started. And I've been farming, like I said, for 31 years. So I've been farming on the same home farm that my parents started on in I think it was 59.
Hey, Kevin, Jason Webster here. Thanks for joining us. How many times have you been to the PTI Farm?
I've been there twice. I was there in 2018. I think that was the first year, and I was there last year in 2019.
So from coming out to the PTI Farm, did you learn anything from the farm and then go home and make changes on your operation?
Yeah, in 2018, I was pretty impressed with all the research that you guys did on the PTI Farm. And I actually brought that information home in December of 2018, and I actually implemented it into my planner for the crop season of 19. And a couple things that I did bring home that I put FurrowJet on my Kinsey planter, and I actually went from a 2x2 fertilized program to more of a pop-up with a fertilizer, the tri-band. And I also took away from the PTI farm putting nitrogen next to the corn row. So I actually took my fertilizer coulters, moved them out to 3 inches, and I run a mixture of sulfur and 32% with the planter. I put about 60 pounds down with that, and I've seen really good results last year, and it went all the way to yield. And I could see I'd say typically about 10 to 12 bushel yield. I had a test plot that I did last year, and that's kind of what I came up with. So
And Kevin, on your planter, do you have a new planter or a fairly new planter in your farming operation, or is this an older planter?
No, actually, in 2010, I bought this planter used. It was 2000. Yeah, it's actually a 2000 planter, and it was about 10 years old when I bought it. And over the years, I reamped it and did different things to it. The first thing I did was I actually, 2 years after I had it, I put the precision vac meters on it, the VSET Classics, and I put a vac on it, got rid of the fingers because I wanted a more precise placement of the seed singulation in the furrow. And then about 2 years after that, I put Air Force on it, and I ran that up to 2020. So this winter, I actually bought Delta Force, and I put that on that planter. I also went to electric drives and updated to the VSET class, or from VSET Classics to VSET 2. And I also added Clean Sweep, the air rams to my Kinsey trash wheels. And I also went to the new style Gen 3 monitor. And I did all that in the last year.
Well, thanks, Kevin. Hey, you know, being a part of PTI Farm coming out, it's kind of a VIP event for farmers. They work with their local Precision Planting Premier dealer. Who's your premier dealer that you worked with that brought you out to the PTI Farm?
Jim Waldron's my dealer, and he runs Performance Planning, and it's out of Franksville, Wisconsin.
Excellent. One last question, Kevin. Are you planning on coming to the PTI Farm this summer?
Most definitely.
Excellent. Well, we can't wait to see you, and thanks for calling in.
We'll see you this summer.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. So, Doug, while we're talking about that, about the COVID situation, things are a little bit different for the events this year. How can our viewers learn more about the PTI Farm this year and what's going on?
Yeah, so over the last couple months with COVID-19 going on, we have been strategically laying out plans on how can we continue to create an educational experience for customers and dealers from around the nation to be able to come in and learn through our plots and through our systems. So we've reestablished, instead of having 2 groups per day, we're going to have 1 group per day of 40 people. We're going to break them into 3 groups, and we'll have split over 3 hours, 2-hour sessions with each. So where our biggest focus is obviously education, but really it's health. We want to make sure that customers, dealers, and ultimately our employees are safe through that experience.
All right. Well, we only have a little over about a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes here left. Any final thoughts?
Well, I tell you, this summer we've got programs going on from June 1 through September 30th, and we actually have a rebate program for customers. So if you buy B-Drive, Delta Force, or Speed Tube, if you buy one of those products, you get $50 per row. 2 products, you get $150 per row. 3 products, you get $200 per row rebate. And then on top of that, a Gen 3 2020, if you purchase that from June 1 through September, or by September 30th, you'll get a $1,000 rebate as a customer on that as well. So take advantage. It's low-hanging fruit on some pretty high-demand products.
Justin, thoughts?
Yeah, I would say that technology can be added to the planter you own today. You know, as Kevin said, he has a planter that's 20 years old. It was new and it was innovative in the time that he bought it, when it was built back in 2000. But he's been able to completely outfit it, so it's just as good as, if not better, than any planter coming out of the factory. So you don't have to save up to buy a brand new planter. You can start fixing planter that you've got in the shed today. You can do it one technology at a time, or like Kevin, you can go in whole hog.
All right. And Jason, got just a few seconds left here, about 30 seconds or so.
We're excited to see everybody this summer. And the whole COVID thing, everybody's canceled, everybody's shut down. We're going full force this summer at the PTI Farm. We can't wait to see you this summer. You can go to our website at precisionplanting.com/PTI, and you can sign up. We hope to see you this summer.
Precisionplanting.com is the place to go. And I tell you what, how do things look at the farm real quick right now?
You know, things look really good. We've had a challenging spring. We just a big planting window early in April all the way to just the last couple of days we were still planting. So we're learning a lot, just like every other grower. We're going to learn a lot on the farm as the growing season continues. I feel it.
Thanks a lot. And thanks for joining us on Rural America Live. Good night from all of Rural America's most important network.